Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, welcome if this is your first visit. Today I'm going to be making a double chocolate zucchini loaf. I'm actually making a double batch of it, so I'm making 2 loaves. I'll show you what's needed here. We need flour, baking soda, cocoa powder, baking powder, instant coffee granules. That is the one thing I did not bring up from my cupboard. I need to go get that. Salt and semi-sweet chocolate chips, or you can use dark, but in this case I'm using semi-sweet. I also need grated zucchini, oil, plain Greek yogurt, eggs, sugar, and vanilla. So let me get you set up on the tripod and we'll get started. I am doing a double batch, so instead of 1.5 cups of grated zucchini, I actually am doing 3 cups, and I'm just realizing that I've probably grated just a smidge too much because I think I have this cup that goes to 2.5 cups, and this is a 1 cup, so I think I've got a little too much. So I'm going to take a little bit out of there. I forgot about that. I only need 2 cups in the one and 1 cup in the other. So I'm going to take a little bit out of that, and I'm going to go down and get my instant coffee granules, and then I'll get you set up on the tripod and we'll get going. So I'll be right back. Okay, we are back. I now have my instant coffee granules. I'm just going to get some measuring cups on the go here. The recipe calls for 1 cup of flour. So because I'm doubling it, I'm going to do 2 cups, obviously. And let me get this going here. This is a recipe I actually got from another YouTuber. I can't remember which one now off the top of my head, but it was some months ago. And I have made it a couple of times and I apparently like it, so it's become a favorite. I will say it's almost, even though it's a even though it's a double chocolate zucchini loaf, and I do bake them in loaf pans, it's almost very cakey in how it turns out. And I find if you leave it on the counter for your family to eat for a few days, it will get eaten. But whereas you can normally leave a banana bread on the counter for a couple of days and it'll be fine, for this, it will start to spoil after a few days. So if you're going to leave it on the counter, wrapped in saran wrap, and let your family pick away at it and slice it and eat it at will, that's fine. But just bear in mind that after about 2 to 3 days or so, if it's not fully eaten, it will start to turn. So this doesn't last as long on the counter as, say, a banana bread or some of the other loaves. It's much more cakey too in consistency, and I don't know, it's very good. It's kind of like a chocolate cake almost in a way, or chocolate zucchini cake, but in a loaf form. So okay, we're combining together a cup of flour, so we did 2 cups, 1/2 cup of cocoa powder, so that means we're doing 1 cup. And I always just love measuring up cocoa powder because it goes everywhere, so I'm going to do it over the sink just because it will wind up on my counter, but more importantly, it'll wind up on my floor if I do it, if I just spoon it in over top of my counter, it'll go everywhere. So I'm going to do it over the sink. Sometimes transferring it from the spoon to the measuring cup, it will drop, but also it's kind of dusty too, so it's like it wants to go everywhere. Yes, I've already got a little bit on the edge of the sink. That's okay, it's not bad. The kitchen needs a cleanup after anyway, and certainly when I'm done baking, I'll definitely need a cleanup. And yes, I just dropped some more right into the sink. That's what happens when you try and multitask and try and chit-chat while you do this too. So it's double chocolate because it has the cocoa powder, but then it also has chocolate chips. And the recipe does say you can use either dark chocolate or semi-sweet. I usually use semi-sweet. I haven't tried it with the dark yet, although I'm sure it'd be very good. There's that. I'm gonna wipe that into the sink, and I'm getting it all over my hand just like I thought I would. That's why measuring out cocoa powder is such a pain sometimes. Got our 1 cup. And we have to, okay, next is 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, but because we're doubling it, that's going to be 1.5 teaspoons. So I'm just going to take out 1 teaspoon and 1/2 teaspoon, I think, are all I need, or is that 1/4? That's 1/4 teaspoon. What do I have? I know I do have 1/2 in here somewhere. Or I can just take out my full set and do it that way. Okay, so we've got 3/4 teaspoon baking soda, but because I'm doing a double, I'm doing 1.5 teaspoons, so I've got my 1 teaspoon. Level it off in there. And the same thing with my 1/2 teaspoon. I know some people like to eyeball things, or they don't bother leveling off, they just make it heaping or whatever, but I don't know. When I'm actually cooking, sometimes if I'm cooking like a supper, then I might play around and experiment or be a little more lenient with measurements. But when it comes to baking, I find baking typically is very precise and you don't mess around with the measurements. So I stick to exactly what it says usually. Okay, 1/4 teaspoon baking powder. That means because I'm doubling it, I'm using a 1/2 teaspoon. So I've got my 1/2 teaspoon here again. Good. And then 1/4 teaspoon of salt, but because I'm doubling it, that will also be 1/2 teaspoon. My salt is over here off camera, so I'm gonna go grab it. I have my salt and my pepper in containers like these. And then it says a 1/2 teaspoon of instant coffee granules, so that means I will be using a full teaspoon. I do also need to preheat my oven, but I also have to remember to do that. I have to take the frying pans out of there that are in there. So I'm going to do a teaspoon of instant coffee. All right. And then 3/4 cup semi-sweet or dark chocolate chips. Now, I have that because I'm doubling it, that's going to be 1.5 cups. And I know this is a fried chicken bucket. That's what I store my chocolate chips in. I only use this because it is Saskatchewan Rough Riders empty fried chicken bucket. And I live in Manitoba, Canada, but I actually grew up in Saskatchewan, Canada, one province west of here. And their CFL football team is the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. So when we were visiting family one time, we picked this bucket of fried chicken up, cooked it or had it, it was all good to go. And we bought the bucket of chicken, and I did it specifically because it had that bucket. I kept it as a souvenir. I think I actually have 2 buckets actually. So 1 cup, and then I need a 1/2 cup. I'll put the rest of my measuring cups right here. Oh, I think my 1/2 cup might be in the dishwasher. So that means I'll grab one from another set. And that is fine. It says to combine these. Now, I mean, I suppose I could have put these in a different measuring bowl and just stirred them by hand, I guess, with a wooden spoon, but whatever, they're in my stand mixer, so I'm going to just combine them that way. Because hopefully the flour and cocoa powder doesn't kick up a bunch of dust. I'll just let it all kind of, there we go, looks pretty good. I think it's okay in there. I'll take a look at this one and make sure it all got blended at the bottom. Because most people would probably take their dry ingredients and put them in a different mixing bowl and just stir them with a wooden spoon, but I'm just going to go over it with a wooden spoon right now to make sure that all the flour got blended in, and it actually looks like it did. This stand mixer did a pretty good job. Okay, so now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these frying pans out of my oven and preheat my oven, which is behind the camera. You can't see that. I'm going to get that preheated. I apologize for all the noise. And what is the temperature we need? 350? 350. So we're going to preheat the oven. Okay, now we're going to add 1.5 cups of grated zucchini, and because I'm doubling it, we're doing 3 cups, and I've already removed a little bit, so I'm down to the 2 cup mark in this cup. I forgot that this is actually a 2.5 cup measuring cup, so when I was grating, I forgot to stop at the 2 cup mark. Or if I was going to fill it to 2.5, I should have just done a 1/2 cup in the other measuring cup, but I forgot. But thankfully I caught that before we started blending ingredients. Might not have been the end of the world, but it would have modified the length of baking time for sure. Having an extra, like almost 1/2 cup of zucchini would have definitely increased the baking time, because it would have been extra zucchini plus just the moisture in the zucchini as well. So I'm glad I caught that. There we go. And now we add 1/4 cup of oil. So that means we're doing a 1/2 cup of oil. Now, do I have my 1 cup glass measuring cup? Yes, I do. Okay, so I need, instead of a 1/4 cup, we're doing a 1/2 cup because I'm doubling. I like to double recipes a lot of times because once I'm in baking mode and making a mess, I might as well make 2, and then I can put 1 in the freezer and leave 1 out to eat. But as I said in a previous video this week when I was making cinnamon buns or when I was making the banana coconut loaf, I am also baking extra because I'm doing a delivery to the fire hall in my 2 fire halls in my neighborhood on Tuesday in memory of my uncle who passed away 8 years ago. He was a deputy fire chief, so on his birthday and Christmas Eve and also on Easter weekend, I usually take some of my homemade jams and a bunch of baking there in his memory. So take something that would be a sad day and make it a good day by doing something in his memory. So I'm baking extra. I like to bake extra anyway to put in the freezer usually, but in this case I'm baking extra so that I can have some to put these baskets together to take. So I did a 1/2 cup of oil, 2 eggs, that means we need 4, but right, first of all, I'm going to do the yogurt. It says a 1/4 cup, but because I'm doubling it again, I'll be using a 1/2 cup. Tighten this cup back again. Now, it says plain Greek yogurt, but the YouTuber that I got this recipe from, I remember she also said you can use vanilla flavor too. So, but I typically stick just to plain just because I'm not a big yogurt person anyway. I don't really care for yogurt much myself, so I don't really know how it would taste or how the difference would be, but I can't tell you because I don't care for yogurts. I don't really know what is better, but I just know that when I watched her video, it said plain Greek yogurt, but then said you can use vanilla as a substitute if you wish. So it sounds like the original recipe is for plain, so that's what I go with. This is a 1 cup measuring cup. I'm just trying to get this to 1/2 cup. It's hard to tell because there's smears on the side of the cup from the spoon. Just make sure I'm not exceeding the 1/2 cup because I don't want to put too much moisture in there. I think that looks okay. It might be. I think we're okay. And okay, that's good for that. Wash this off my finger here. Okay, now it says 2 eggs, but again, because I'm doubling, I'm going to use 4. Here's my measuring cup right there. I can't see what I'm doing. And 2. Losing count of how many eggs I put in already. Because I stopped to rearrange them in the carton for some reason, and I'm losing count. So that's 3. And I've got yogurt on my fingers. I'm fiddling around with that measuring cup again. Okay, 4th one. Okay. Now, a 1/2 cup of sugar. So that means we are doing 1 cup because we are doubling, as I said multiple times. You're probably getting tired of hearing me say that. This has cocoa powder all over it, so I'm just going to use the 1/2 cup measuring cup. Otherwise, if I'm dipping the 1 cup measuring cup in the bag, it's going to get the crumbs from the cocoa powder into the rest of my sugar in the bag, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to use a 1/2 cup and just do 2 of them. Okay, 1/2. And then all that is left to add after this will be the vanilla. 1 teaspoon, so I'm going to be doing 2. Okay, that is that. And then once this is blended, I just have to spray my 2 loaf pans down with Pam, and the oven should be preheated shortly thereafter. Bring it over and show you how it looks as it's blending. This is how it is looking. I'll probably take the spatula and scrape the sides a little bit. I can see there's a little bit of cocoa powder on the one side that needs to be blended in. So I'm dropping zucchini there. Up the speed just a little bit. It's pretty well blended, I think. I'm going to take the spatula and go over it just to make sure. Okay, very chocolatey and messy. My dishwasher is almost ready to run too, so this is good timing to be getting this finished. See how much of this I can get off the beater. I know it is very good. We have made this before. It's good. My daughter has requested I make it again. And you know, it's a popular one around the house here. But it is something that once it's cooked, if you're going to leave it out on the counter, wrap it in saran wrap, that's fine so it doesn't dry out, but don't leave it for more than a few days. Like, you need to eat it within the first few days because it will start to turn quicker than, say, a banana bread or a standard loaf. They will turn too after a few days and start going bad, but this seems to just go quicker for some reason. But this is a good enough recipe that if you have enough people in your house that like it, it shouldn't be sitting on the counter for more than a couple days. It should be well eaten relatively quickly. It is actually quite a nice recipe. Okay, you go wash this off my fingers a little bit. And baking is a dirty job, but you know, it's if I start opening my cupboard drawers now, chocolate all over my fingers, I'm going to have quite a mess on my hands, creating more work for myself to clean up. So let's scrape that off the side. That little bit of zucchini down in there, right down to the bottom of the bowl. Make sure there's no flour or anything that didn't blend in. Because the last thing you want is to see a little white gob of flour in the middle of your zucchini loaf when you cut it open. You get, oh, okay, that happened. I obviously didn't blend something in right. I've done that before with my fudgy brownie recipe that I make, where you have to stir it all together on the stovetop in a saucepan, and then pour it in your 9x13 pan and bake it. And then sometimes I go to cut a piece, and I'm like, you see a little white dot in the middle. So obviously I didn't do a perfect job of blending in all of the flour. So I mean, things happen, but nobody wants to bite into just a clump of flour, because that doesn't taste good. So it's just one of those things that the stand mixer does quite a good job, but it doesn't hurt to get in here with a spatula and just make sure everything's blended. Now, as I'm pouring it, I may still see another bit that needs to be fixed up, but that's fine. I can quickly just put the bowl down and try to clean that up as we pour it here too. Get the bowl off. Okay, I'm gonna push this back so I have some room. There. Now, I'm gonna get my loaf pans out. They are in the back of this cupboard. I use them often enough, these 2 glass ones. I might as well just leave them out all the time, but I don't know. But then sometimes I don't bake for a couple weeks, and I can't just have these sitting on the counter endlessly. So, okay. And like I said, a lot of people in previous videos, I've said a lot of people like to grease their loaf pans with butter or lard or oil. I do typically use pan cooking spray, and I never have a problem getting them out of the pans. So that's what I use. But you use what you prefer. If you prefer to use lard or butter or oil, have at it. Whatever you think, whatever you prefer, whatever works best for you. But I don't even really know why I use Pam instead of that stuff. I just do. Maybe just the convenience. But it's preference. As long as it's well greased in whatever way you choose, so that when you go to pop this out of the pan, it comes out and you don't leave half of it behind in the pan. That's all that matters. So as long as it's well greased, that is the main thing. The only way I would take any real liberty in this recipe, because again, to me, cooking, like for suppers, that's where you can play with the flavors and make them a little stronger or whatever in different things. But baking, I don't. I usually follow the recipe precisely. The only exception to that to me in this recipe would be with the coffee flavoring. Depends how strong you want that. You really can't honestly detect that very much in this recipe, but if you want that to be a little bit more of a pop, then you could put a little bit more of the coffee granules in. But for the most part, especially my first time making it, I stuck right to what it said, just because, you know, confidence thing maybe on my part, I don't know. But I just, especially being my first time making it before, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to stick exactly to the recipe till I know how this turns out. And then if you want to deviate or change things up, you know, maybe you could experiment. But for the most part, I still do stick to the traditional recipe. When it comes to baking, I typically almost always follow the recipes right to the letter. I don't know if that's just a confidence thing on my part where I'm afraid to experiment or what, or I just feel like baking is less forgiving than cooking. Oh, and I just got some chocolate dripping down the cupboard door. I'll have to wipe that off. I think baking typically is a little bit less forgiving than cooking, but it depends on the recipe. Sometimes if I'm doing an apple pie or apple crisp, if there's cinnamon involved, sometimes I might put a little bit more than what's recommended, depending on if I want that to be a little bit stronger, but that's really about the extent of my experimenting when it comes to baking. I tend to stick right to the recipes for the most part. I'm gonna have to get in here and scoop this off the spatula. And again, as I've told you in previous videos, these two loaf pans are similar in size, but they're not exactly the same. So the larger of the two, this one, will probably take slightly longer than the other. And even though the recipe says to bake for 45 to 55 minutes, quite often, it probably depends somewhat on your oven. It probably depends on how much humidity there is in the air too. Usually being on the Canadian prairies here, usually it's not too humid. Usually it's dry heat here. But this summer we have had a lot of humidity. So it really depends. But even just in the slight difference in size of the loaf pans as well, that will also make a difference in the cooking time too. So you just have to, I'll probably set it for 45 to 50 minutes to start, and then check with a toothpick and go from there. And again, this second pan that I'm topping up right now is probably gonna take a little longer because it's slightly smaller. But that's fine, as long as you actually hear your timer, which the other day I did not hear my timer when my first pan of cinnamon buns came out. So they were a little bit overdone. They weren't burnt, but overdone to my liking. So as long as you hear your timer, you're able to go check them. That's the main thing. Now the beeping you're hearing in the background, or just heard, that is the oven saying it is preheated. Put this aside. Right now you can kind of see the grease a little bit along the top there from the pan cooking spray. That probably doesn't look great, but I mean, honestly, it's not much different than if you had butter smeared all over the side of your loaf pan as well. And it will just cook, like it will just, you won't see that when it's done baking. It's like having, you know, like you don't see that when it's all said and done. Okay, so I would turn you around. I've got the loaf pans sitting there. I'm going to pop them in the oven. Make sure this tripod doesn't fall down on me here. Okay, we're going to put these guys in the oven. I think because it says 45 to 55 minutes, I think I will start with, I'll probably do 50. I could go with 45, but I'm pretty sure I remember this recipe not being done in the minimal amount of time. So I think we're just going to go with 50 to start, and then we'll check. Timer. Okay, set for 50 minutes. Now I need to get whatever I can of these dishes into the dishwasher because it's ready to be washed, ready to run. It's pretty well full, so I'm just gonna add a couple of things here. Whatever I can. Yeah, the bottom is full. The top, I might be able to get a couple things in there. Maybe. We had Ruby, our African grey parrot, out earlier, and she was trying to get in the dishwasher. I took pictures of her about a week ago. She was in the kitchen here, and she was sitting on the side of, like, up here and down here on the side of the dishwasher, looking in and being cute. And that may have been a mistake because now she thinks that she can every time it's open, she thinks she can climb in there and sit there. So it's not like it'll ever get run with her in it and we won't notice it because she's a big bird. But also, we don't normally leave the dishwasher sitting open, so it's not like she'll ever crawl in there and somebody will start it without her realizing it. She's not, she's noticeable. She's a good-sized bird. She will be noticed if she ever is sitting in it. Usually she's not in it, usually she's more just on these sides here. So, but yeah, she's helping herself and she seemed to think that was her perch. So, had to get her out of there. Let's see here. I'll probably put a couple of these guys in. The sooner we get this load of dishes started, the better. Get this feeder in here. I think that'll probably fit. There's not going to be much else that goes though. This little guy can fit. When I put the measuring cups up top, I have to put them such that the handle goes underneath a cup or something though, so that they don't get going, bouncing around in the dishwasher once the water starts really circulating. So I have to make sure everything is fairly secured, or else one of these guys is going to wind up on the bottom causing trouble. So try to put them up top. Pack them somewhat snug together so those measuring cups stay stationary so they don't go flying around. Okay, that is not going in. And I'm getting chocolate on me again, but that's not so bad. One last little bowl here, but I don't think there's room in there for it. Not really. Okay, so I think we've got everything except this wooden spoon, and this other measuring spoon can go in. And I would say that is a full load. Okay. And I think that's perfect timing because you can't hear, but in the background there's someone in the bathroom in the shower, and so I was debating whether I want to get this dishwasher started. But, you know, to be considerate, I was like, oh, maybe I should just wait until the shower shuts off. But the shower just did shut off just 10 seconds ago, so. Okay, dishwasher tab. Timer is set at 46 minutes left on it. Dishwasher's going to get started. There we go. And then I'm going to put my mixing bowl in the sink with some water in it because it is not going to fit in that dishwasher load, so I'm gonna put it. And I still have to put all these ingredients away. That'll be the other thing. Well, it's my vanilla. I don't need to have that in the middle of it all. This can go in the cupboard. Gotta get these chocolate chips off of here because pretty soon the sun will be hitting this part of the counter. I don't know if that melted my chocolate chips. That is a pudding cup. That's recycling. We're going to rinse that out, toss it in my recycling bin. This house is limited in space. I have limited cupboard space. And so actually I have a pantry cupboard downstairs in the basement. That's where all these have to go back to. Kind of a pain to not have it all up here. Someday I'll be able to afford a bigger house with a nice large kitchen, maybe with a pantry in it or something. But right now, I gotta remember when I bake, I have to go down there and get the ingredients I need and bring them all up from downstairs. So that's what we do. So that and the cocoa powder have to go back. These are clean. And the yogurt can go back in the fridge. I don't know that we'll be finishing that because unless I make another 2 loaves of these, but I don't have enough zucchini to make 2 more loaves. So those guys are going to be going back downstairs to the cupboard. And my oil can go back in the other cupboard across the room here. I got chocolate on the door handle over here. Lovely. I got chocolate on the door handle. And if you can see that, I gotta get that a wipe down. And I saw something on the cover door by the sink. Looks like strawberry or something. Always something to clean in this place. Always something. I don't know if I still need more water in this dish. And I have no idea what we're going to supper, and it's already 3:30, so no idea. I don't have a plan. Maybe I'll have to barbecue something. Okay, so that's full of water to soak, and that is it. So now we will just let this, I have to put these groceries away downstairs, and the timer, there's 42 minutes left. So I will check back with you guys in a little bit once these come out of the oven, and I'll show you how they turned out. Alrighty, here we go. I just took these out of the oven. I've tested them with a toothpick. They are nice and clean on the inside. So they actually took closer to an hour, both of them. So the timer went off after 50 minutes. The smaller one was pretty much done, but the other one took about 10 minutes. So they are finished now. This is how they turned out. So one of these will be going into the freezer for the next couple days until I'm ready to cut them up and put part of it in the delivery on Tuesday. I might already have one in the freezer actually from before, I'm not sure. But the other one of them will stay on the counter just for us to eat as a family, because it is something that my family does enjoy. So this is how they turned out, and I can't translate to you how they smell obviously through YouTube. You'll have to take my word for it. But if you want to try this recipe, do go back earlier in the video and take note of the different ingredients. Or here, I will show you a quick picture of the ingredients of the recipe. This is what it is. And again, I started with 50 minutes on the timer and wound up using pretty much an hour actually to get them all baked. So turned out very, very well. They always do. It's a family favorite around here. So I hope that if you decide to make this, I hope you let me know how you liked it. And I also hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do leave a thumbs up and a comment down below, and do subscribe if you are new. And we will see you next time. I hope everybody enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next video, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone. Have a great day.